let's use the drawing tools and actually create something that's more like a real-world project so you can see how some of these things begin interacting together. We will go ahead and use this blob brush tool, and for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to use the pen and tablet that I have right here to show you how it works. And I'll tell you, if you do not have a tablet and you do any kind of on-screen drawing like this, you will never regret the money you spend for it. There are very modestly priced small tablets like the Bamboo from Wacom. There's larger ones that you can spend an arm and a leg for if you want. Let me show you the difference here. We can see how large this red circle is, and that's how large the stroke would be if I was using my mouse. But since I'm using a pressure-sensitive pen, I can very lightly press and draw. I can go ahead and get thick and then lighten up again and get a shape really, really easily like that. Let me select this shape and delete it and start drawing what we want, which let's say in this case will be a peach or something like that. So I'm going to create this basic shape. I'm going to click real hard and get a full circle. And then I'm going to come around and give us that little dimple right at the top like fruit seems to have. So we get this basic shape, but we need a little more definition right up here where this shape kind of comes in and creates that little indentation that happens to be three-dimensional. So we'll come back over and use the tool we looked at before, the Add Point tool. Now this can create lines and add them to existing shapes. To do that, what I want to do is click where there is no points and then meet up with an existing point. You'll find you have much better luck when you do that rather than starting with a point and then moving away. So I'll go ahead and click and drag here, release, click and drag, and as I get near a point, we see that little turquoise circle that lets me know that there's going to be a weld function happening. When I release, we get this line that matches the top curve right there. All right, we're started okay here. The lines are all the same shape, and that to me is exceedingly boring. So let's go ahead and do a couple things. One is, as we look at this, you'll notice there are a lot of red points around here. And that has to do with the blob brush. When you draw, it tries to throw a point wherever it needs to keep the shape integrity where it is when you drew it. Let's get rid of these things because especially when you start animating, having this many points per object is going to come back to bite you hard later on because it's hard to work with. So we'll come over here to our point reduction tool. I'll click on that, and I'm just going to drag it around the perimeter of the shape. The nearer the center, the more powerful it is. When I release, we can see looking around that all those points have been reduced to just a few, keeping them only where they need to change shape or help the shape look like it's changing directions real quickly. We've reduced the size of the file. We've made it easier to work with. Good stuff. Now what I'm going to do is choose the marquee tool. I want the lines up here to be a little bit thicker just for the sake of visual interest. So I'm going to click and drag, grab some multiple points, and now come down here to my width tool, keyboard shortcut W. With that selected, I don't need to really click on these points. I can click or touch the mouse down or the brush and drag to the left to make them skinnier, drag them to the right to make them a little bit coarser. I'm going to click on this one point and drag to the left. Let me select that using the point tool right here. Come back to our width tool and sharpen this up so we get a nice termination. I also want a little heavier line weight down here. So what I'll do is simply use the marquee tool and click and drag. If you can't select the items that you want in a rectangle, then you can use the point tool right here and shift click multiple points. I'll come back here, select the width tool, click and drag to the right a little bit, and that thickens it up and gives it a little more weight on the bottom, which is usually visually pleasing. Now the only problem we have is that instead of a peach, we have a deformed white cue ball. So let's change the color. Your first temptation, and this is where many people that work in other drawing programs run into issues, is they immediately think, hey, this is just like, in my case, Adobe Illustrator. I can come right over here and change the color by clicking on the color. Look, the color picker popped up, and now I want to change this to some nice peach-like color. Maybe it's a little more pink than that. Perfect, and you select it, you see the color, and you go, okay, and nothing happens. The reason for that, and it's actually a safety feature that will serve you very well in anime, is that the shape needs to be selected before you can actually change the color of it. To do that, we come over here to the Fill section and choose the Select Shape tool. When I do that, I'll click on the shape, and it's got a very subtle change. Only the line that came into the middle of it turned to a checkerboard pattern to let you know that this is active. But now that I've selected the shape and there's no other visual cue, so it's easier for you to see the changes you're making, when I come back to the fill, or better yet, come down to one of these little presets down here, you can go ahead and just click on something that's more peach-like, and it changes color. Now we can go ahead and see the checkerboard pattern. Because we've changed it, the white made it relatively invisible. To click off the shape turns it back to its natural state, and we've got our first completed shape. So it's very easy to work with the program to go ahead and create basic shapes with the blob tool if you want to do that. We can also create them with the add point tool, the freehand tool, doesn't matter, I just demonstrated that, or the shape tool. We can go ahead and make certain points on it thicker and thinner using the weight tool. Then we select the shape, and then we can change the color and the line color if we wanted to.